You're listening to the Get Peeled podcast, a space for life enthusiasts to get inspired, learn through others about fitness, business, relationships, and life itself. I'm your host, Hannah Eden, a fitness entrepreneur that has an obsession with sweating and a burning desire to share and inspire others with the lessons that I have learned through fitness. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Get Peeled podcast. My name is Hannah Eden.
And I'm Paulo Barreto. Today we're here in Montana still.
Yes, we are. We are in Kalispell, and today we have a very, very interesting and intriguing guest. So we're here with Dan, aka the Rasta runner, and this guy is a very interesting individual, and I'm very excited to sit down today. As always, we're going to touch on our subjects of personal, business, relationships, but this is a pretty cool podcast because I know a little bit about Dan. From the outside in, if I was to describe you, if no one is watching and they're only listening, what, you're 6'2"?
6 foot, yeah.
6 foot? Okay,
yeah.
6 foot. Has incredible hair, dreads that literally go down beyond his waist. Really, really cool colored skin with freckles on his arms, his face, a nice little bit of beard around the chin. He's got cool beads on his wrists. He's got tattoos on his hands. Like, he's just a really cool and interesting individual.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. And, you know, I'm going to give a quick intro to you for what I got from Rob, right? Yeah. So Rob Bailey introduced us and we met for the first time at 5 o'clock in the morning, right before we decided to summit Oberlin again here in Glacier National Park. And Rob saw us connecting and he ran by the side of us and says, okay, let me tell you about Dan. And then he ran away. And this is what he gave me. He's like, okay, well, Dan is a little bit Mexican. He rides bulls. He's an ultra runner. He is an absolute, what did he call him? A Glacier National Park historian.
National Park historian.
Yeah. And then that was kind of it and ran away. I was like, wait, what? I need to know more about this guy. So that's my idea of introducing you. And now I want to give you the floor to kind of just tell me more about you as an individual. Not what you do for business, not what you can find on Instagram, but who is Dan?
So Dan is like this ever-evolving and curious person. You know, when I was a kid, I grew up on the central coast of California, and I was raised primarily by my mom. And my mom did an amazing job as a parent, but my mom also kind of gave me this free spirit and curiosity because she also had that. And I saw it modeled from a young age, and she really gave me creative freedom to kind of do whatever that caught my interest. And so from a young age, I had that curiosity. And so I remember jumping from thing to thing, trying to figure out what it is that I was into. And I've always credited her that part of who I am. And I feel like even now at 35, I've kind of carried that same boyish curiosity throughout my life. And that's why you see the bull riding and the running and the ninja and all of these different things because, you know, I think at my core, it's always just kind of been well, what else am I capable of here? What else catches my attention? And I've always tried to just not try to fit into a box and go one way because I know that there are so many things out there and I want to try all the things and, you know, just have this really unique, well-rounded set of skills.
Now, that's a really cool place to be at 35, right?
Yeah.
I remember having little snippets of conversation with you when we were out on the mountain.
Yeah.
And was it always that way for you? Were you always comfortable in your skin to be different, to look different, to do things that are different? Or was that kind of not the norm and that gave you some shit when you were younger?
I think it was both. I think to me it felt normal because it was one of those things that I had just always done. But from the outside looking in, I did get a lot of flack for it. You know, I was bullied at a young age. I was kind of teased and picked on a lot, to be honest with you. You know, I grew up in a predominantly mixed neighborhood of Latinos and blacks and some whites. But because I was, you know, lighter skinned, I tend to get a little bit more of the focus drawn to me for being this skinny, undersized, freckle-faced kid. So I feel like I kind of always had that target on me to begin with. But again, it just felt normal to want to do all these different random things. And so I just carried on regardless of it. What I didn't realize until I was kind of in my 20s was that I had a lot of things that had built up over the years in terms of like identity and maybe even like a little bit of trauma around it all that I didn't realize was even there, but I just kept like working and finding all these different avenues regardless of it. So 20s came, and then it kind of like opened me up to understanding like who I was at a deeper level and some of those things that I had been carrying since I was younger.
Mm-hmm. And I did some creeping, and I didn't know this until last night when I totally was going down a rabbit hole on everything that you do. But I had no idea that you're a horse trainer, and that's kind of how you got to Whitefish. And I think that before we get into that story, I have this idea in my head that anyone that has worked in hospitality or worked on a farm are the people that I want in my corner, because they understand people and they understand hard work and work ethic. And rain or shine, the job's got to be fucking done, right?
100%.
And there's a lot of people that don't get that, you know, and they've never really been exposed to that rugged lifestyle. Yeah. So but as soon as it gets tough or dirty, it's time to go home, right? And it's like people don't want to get in. And I think ultra running and being able to have that mindset, or mountaineering, comes with a very specific skill set, and as well as like a mindset as well of like just getting down and dirty and doing whatever it takes to make it. Was this something that you were raised in? Like, tell me more about like the horses, the farm world, and kind of how you think that shaped you into like one of your programs. I mean, you sell a ebook that is equine strength, right? And I'm like, this is fascinating. I need to know about this. Huh? It is, but it's such a cool thing. Like, I've never looked into that. I've never met anyone that's a trainer that focuses on that. And I think there's a gigantic market for it if you're in the right space.
So my dad is from Mexico, and my dad was raised in that like equine horsemanship, cowboy way of life. And ever since I have remembered my dad, he's worn 4 things: Wrangler jeans, button-up shirts, cowboy boots, and a cowboy hat.
I love that.
Always had, like, I've never seen him really wear anything else. In fact, I take that back, because one time, it was actually just a couple summers ago, I saw him in a pair of like white and blue Nikes, and I was just thinking to myself like,
"Whoa!
I didn't know you had Nike. Like, I didn't even know you knew what Nikes were." And to be honest, this morning he called me. He's like, "Hey, mijo." Mijo means my son in Spanish. Mijo, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm gonna go record a podcast with some friends. He's like, "What's a podcast?"
I love that.
So he's very like traditional, old school country.
He's back in California.
He's actually here now.
Oh, way.
Cool.
Yeah, he's here now.
Okay.
He lives on a ranch out maybe 20 minutes from here. But anyhow, he's very traditional, very old school. But he's always been a cowboy, and he's always had horses.
Okay.
And so from the time I was young, he's had horses. I've been around that lifestyle. And I've always just kind of been intrigued by watching him get on and train horses. And, you know, he also was in the rodeo for a lot of years as well.
Cool.
So my dad was a saddle bronc and a bareback rider. And for
Very
those
cool.
that don't know, those are the wild events of the rodeo.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people think bull riding is wild and tough, and it can be, but it's the bucking horses that are the ones that...
What do you think that makes that? Is it the size of the horse versus a bull that makes that harder? Is the buck different to a bull? Like, just so people understand.
Well, I think what makes the horse events different than the bull riding, it's really 2 things for me. Number one is that horses are way more unpredictable than a bull is. A bull is honest. A bull is going to buck. It's going to try to come after you. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Horses, on the other hand, a lot of times are acting out of fear and just straight up scared. Yeah. And so horses tend to flip over a lot more. They tend to just be a lot more erratic than a bull does. But the other thing with the horse events is that they're just so much tougher, jerkier, and the movement itself and the actual ride, it's harder to get into a rhythm when you're riding the animal.
Yeah, so this last weekend we saw one dude, oh my goodness. This dude, the horse, instead of starting to buck, he started bucking, but running straight forward onto the fence.
Yeah, they go right at it.
We're like, is he going to go through it?
I'm like, dude, the dude is going to go over the fence. And sure enough, the guy falls, and I'm not joking. The guy's like, man, his hair touched the fence. Not his head. The hair went on the fence, and I'm like,
we're all like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
You would have split him open.
That's what I mean. Dude. Horses, they're just unpredictable. They'll run right at a fence. They'll run and jump over the fence. And you don't know what you're getting into.
So intriguing.
Okay.
And that is true. This is our second rodeo, right, since we've been here. ever, and it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah,
do this often.
Yep, it's very cool. So from a young age, seeing my dad train horses, knowing that my dad had a history in the rodeo, like I was automatically drawn to that. I got pictures on my phone right now that I just got of my dad when he was younger training horses. And it's so funny because what he was wearing then is the same thing that he's wearing now. So I think I just kind of gravitated towards that lifestyle from a young age.
So I'm a very visual guy when it comes to storytelling. That's why I love music and rapping, like you were rapping before the podcast. Yeah. And I'm obsessed with that. And I just, takes me back to that scene and I try to put it together. Yeah. So California. Yeah. Were your dad training horses in California while you were a kid already, or that was back in Mexico? How is it? When did you?
So my dad started training horses at a young age. So like I was saying, he came to America at 7, worked in the fields, and then kind of got into horse training a little bit later in his life.
That is California.
That's in California.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started getting into horse training when I was a teenager. When I was about 13, 14 is kind of when I started actually training and working with horses. Cool. But by the time I was that age, he was just riding them. He wasn't doing a lot of formal training. Right. We just had horses. And
was there a normal avenue for kids on your in your community? Because you said that you were in a very mixed racial community. Yeah. And at points you got picked on.
For sure.
Were you the oddball doing cowboy stuff?
Of
and
course.
Everyone was like,
I love that.
Or everyone around was like, yeah, that's what we're into.
Well, I think what a lot of people may not know about the central coast of California. I think a lot of people think coast in California, they think of beach and surf. Yeah. Where I'm from in California is a lot of rural farmland. It's wine country out there. Cool. It's horse country out there. And so I kind of grew up in an agricultural area of California. And so for a lot of people, training horses and, like that country lifestyle was just very normal.
Sweet. Yeah. Now the horse world, does that blend into the bull riding world? And when you took bull riding pretty seriously?
So I was already working with horses before I started riding bulls. Okay. And they went hand in hand. But what I found was like, it was such a different set of skills. But the transition from being into horses and then getting into bull riding just seemed really easy. Yeah. And I was 14 when I started getting into bull riding more and more and trying to figure out how I could do it. And I had this really cool pivotal moment where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this now. This sounds like fun.
That's so cool, man. So you did it competitively?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And what was your event?
So primarily I rode bulls. That was the immediate draw for me. I remember being at a state fair in Paso Robles, California when I was 14. Yeah, what's that?
Paso Robles.
Paso Robles, yeah. So mid-state fair, it's a big, huge fair there. It's super, super popular. But I rode the mechanical bull, like most young guys do, and really just felt like I had this, I don't know, this raw talent. I wasn't very good at it, but I knew that it was kind of easy for me to figure out where my body needed to be in order to make the ride. So I got off, and I remember thinking I think I could do this. So I started thinking, how can I start getting into this sport? Well, this was also early days of the internet. Mm-hmm. So I remember going to our home computer, this cheesy old green screen Macintosh with the mouse that still had the cord that you had to plug in the computer. But I remember typing in bull riding or something in my area, and what I found was that there was this man who had a ranch and an arena in bulls that was 15 minutes away from my house. So I get this man's number, I call him up, and I'm like, hey, I'm like this. In my head, I'm just this young kid calling this full-grown adult asking if I can come to his house. But anyhow, I'm like, hey, I really want to learn how to ride bulls. Is there something that we can work out? Something to that effect. And this old guy's like, well, I'll tell you what, I've got some fence to fix.
I love that.
I got a lot of work to do.
I got a lot of work to do, but if you want to come out and you want to work and, maybe we could work something out. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm like, Mom, here's the situation. Can you take me to this guy's house? Now imagine a 14-year-old kid saying, hey, this old man wants me to come out and work at his house. You know what I mean? And as a mom, I remember she was a little hesitant at first, but she took me out there.
I love that.
Now, long story short, I end up working my butt off all day long for this guy, fixing his fence to keep his cattle in. And at the end of that afternoon, we start the entire process of learning how to ride bulls. Now, what I didn't realize was who this man was. This wasn't just like any old man with property and bulls, but this was Gary Lefew. And if you don't know who Gary Lefew is, he's a PRCA world champion bull rider.
Wow.
Who just happened to live 15 minutes away from me.
Crazy. That just gave me goosebumps.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that
wow.
amazing?
I mean, what he did as well is like, kid, you're not just going to come over here and get on a bull. You got to earn that shit.
Exactly.
Like that is a mindset right there. And I love that.
Exactly.
Like that just gave me goosebumps.
Man.
What a crazy cool
PRCA
thing.
is the league in California.
PRCA is the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. So
That is
consider,
badass.
It's even bigger. Okay.
consider it like the NFL of cowboy sports.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
so
And I had
cool.
no idea until I
Even
got
better.
there.
Even better.
Even better. And so
It's amazing.
So Gary Lefew is, he's an actor. He does all of the stunt double and training for all of like the bull rider films that have ever come out. 8 Seconds with Luke Perry. He was Luke Perry's instructor in that film. It was actually filmed at his ranch.
Oh, wow. Is he still around today?
Oh yeah, he's still alive.
That's incredible.
so cool.
He's still alive. He still does all of his bull riding camps around the country.
Amazing.
You guys keep in touch?
We don't keep in touch much.
Dang,
anymore.
you should. What
Yeah,
a
you
cool
should.
thing to do to go
One
back
day.
to that
I
world.
would say, dude, remember me?
Do you remember I was that?
Hey,
do some
remember?
crazy stuff
Is the
because of
fence
you.
still good? Is it still holding up? Did it do a good job?
Exactly.
So did he take you under his wing and
That's exactly.
show you
what
the
happened.
ropes? Oh man, that's so
Took
cool.
me under his wing. I ended up moving out to his ranch out there, which is in Nipomo, California. But
At what age?
15. I was
Damn.
15 when I first started like really going out there and living there. I was 14 when I actually went out there for the first time.
Yeah.
So I worked all day at his house that first day, and I thought, all right, cool, I'm gonna get on a bull this afternoon. So when we got done with the fence, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And he's just like,
Nope.
no, you're not. So I didn't actually get on a bull that day, but what I did do is we went up into like the training gym area of the house, and he was just starting to show me the mechanics, where your body needs to be, your chest, your shoulders, your free arm, how to squeeze with your legs, body position.
Wow.
And then we started watching film, and what was so interesting to me is where he took me was kind of like the trophy room, photo room. And I was just blown away by all these old black and white photos of him riding bulls in the 60s, in the 70s.
What? That's a most life-changing opportunity,
Life-changing.
a moment for a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you talk about like impeccable timing and just extraordinary situation of right place, right time. I don't know how I did it, but I found it.
That's amazing.
It is.
And you would think, right? Because at that like very beginning of the internet, if you Google something and someone pops up, you wouldn't think then.
Yeah.
But if you look back, you're like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be a random dude. Oh, let me go on this internet thing and put my name there.
Right.
Had to be a big guy. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
And I always have this conversation behind closed doors or on a podcast with people that I look at as like a higher achiever, right? Like anyone that can want to sign up to do anything over 10 miles is a sick fuck in the best way, right? I mean that with the most respect.
Of
but
course.
I'm always like curious to see like, did something happen to you in your life that caused trauma, that you're running from pain? Or was there an influential person in your life that, I don't know if you can say an idol or a mentor, but someone that was in your life that maybe planted a seed or told you that they saw something in you or like sparked this fire to try and do more, to try and, push the limits and total human optimization, right? Like what can we do as human beings? Yeah. Do you think that this man had a big part to do with that? Clearly a mom is a big piece of that as well.
Yeah.
But do you think that he had anything to do with your itch to just keep going?
So what's interesting about Gary Lefew is that he's a world champion bull rider. He's done a lot of really cool things. But what made him so successful was his big influence on personal development.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And I think that in the sport of rodeo, like early on, that really wasn't a thing. It was really just a bunch of hard-knock cowboys getting out and getting on bulls and going. But what was different about him was he was always saying like, no, it's about the way you think. Mm-hmm. And from the time I was 14, 15 years old, I was reading books on personal development. I was learning about who Zig Ziglar was. I was learning about who Maxwell Maltz is. I mean, I remember the first book that I read on personal development, I was 15, and it was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz.
Wow.
And what he was talking about in the book is how to prime your thoughts and your mind for success. So Gary was really big on that. The physical side was there, but he was really big on teaching me about my mindset. And so from a young age, like that was like really my introduction to personal development and using my thoughts to prime myself for success. And so I understood the importance of mentorship at a young age, and like having a coach or a mentor or somebody to kind of lean on as I was going through these different events and things I was doing. So yeah, he definitely was like the start of that for me. That's
amazing. At such a young age too.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Oh yeah. I had no idea what personal development was until I was like hitting rock bottom, and then it's like, fuck, now I've got to figure this shit out. When we find it, right. But that's awesome. That really, really is. Now, I want to put a pin in here because we haven't talked about it. And I did a little bit of research, and full disclosure, total ignorance on this side, right? Rastafari.
Yeah.
Help me understand this. Is it a religion? Is it a lifestyle? Is it a fashion? Like, what is it? Tell me everything about it, especially from my point of view, or anyone that's listening that has no idea about it.
Okay, so
and when it started.
Okay.
Yeah,
for sure. So Rastafari is, depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer because there are so many different sects of Rastafari. So going back to the beginning, Rastafari is what you could probably consider the youngest organized religion or lifestyle to date. You know, it started in the 40s, and it was really like a revolutionist type of movement at the time, because originating really in Jamaica, there was a lot of colonialism that was going on from the British. They owned Jamaica and some of the surrounding Caribbean islands at the time, and locals on those islands were really looking to have something that they could call their own. And there was a couple of really key figures at that time. One of them, his name was Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey was a Jamaican nationalist who was really about like liberating people. And, you know, if you think about like what Martin Luther King has done, Dr. Martin Luther King has done here in the United States, Marcus Garvey was pre-Dr. King. And a lot of people would say that like he was the original freedom fighter activist. He was the kind of like followed in those footsteps. And so Marcus Garvey was trying to uplift his people in Jamaica. And Marcus Garvey was one of like those early figures who got that movement off the ground. Now, in Jamaica, what was happening was, as people were starting to listen to Marcus Garvey, they were starting to want to stand up for themselves a little bit more. What they found was that there was a lot more people who thought like Marcus Garvey. And so they started to form a religion, a lifestyle around Rastafari. Now, Rastafari is actually a person. And Marcus Garvey was the one who kind of like brought that person into the lives of Jamaicans. Rastafari is a man from Ethiopia. He was the emperor of Ethiopia at the turn of the 19th century, Emperor Haile Selassie.
Okay.
And Haile Selassie, the emperor of Ethiopia, his name was Raz. First name was Raz, meaning head of, and then Tafari, and that was his name, Raz Tafari. And so the movement, the religion, the lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, was based off of this man. Marcus Garvey was the one that said, look to the east for the crowning of a black king. He will be the Messiah. He will be the Savior. And at that time, again, Jamaicans were really looking for something to call their own. So they took those words from Marcus Garvey, and when they looked to the east and found the black king, who was that? That was Emperor Selassie. And so now locals in the Caribbean and Jamaica now have a man that they can see as the Messiah, the second coming of Christ. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like the introduction of Rastafari and the religion in Jamaica in the 1940s.
Wow, that's fascinating. I had no idea.
So that's really where it all started.
And for you?
And for me, where it all started was honestly like I've been listening to reggae music since I was in high school. Since I was riding bulls, to be honest, I was listening to reggae because it always just caught my attention, you know. But I came around to Rastafari in the beginning of like 2013, I think is like really when it started to take hold, where I was really interested in knowing more and more about it. And I think that I've really like always had a part of Rastafari in me, like that way of thinking, but it really didn't like manifest itself until I started really diving in and not really just listening to the music for the beat, but really listening to what was in between the lines, the message, the idea of self-discipline and upliftment and positivity, all of those things that I had learned at a younger age, but now realizing that there are way more people out there that think the same way that I do. And so I started coming around to it in 2013, learning more and more, visiting Jamaica as a tourist, but then coming back a little bit later and visiting it as trying to find more people like me out there.
I love that. It's like a sense of belonging or, a community.
And I think that that's what I really needed, because you were talking about rock bottom a little bit earlier. In 2013, I came to that rock bottom, and I was really searching for something. And when I was out there and looking, what I found was these people in Jamaica who kind of like just brought me in and were like, hey, you're one of us, you're a brother to us.
That's amazing.
Like, that's what I found in reggae music, was like that thing that I was really just looking for, because I did feel lost. I did feel alone and isolated as I was kind of going through all of my stuff. And I think I even said it to you, like running was one of those things that kind of like saved me in a lot of ways. But here's the thing, like when I started bringing reggae music into running, that took my idea of what was possible for me to another level, because I started infusing the mountain running with the reggae music, and like it put me in this really heightened spiritual place where it just like made me want to be better. It made me want to change. And that kind of like is what got me up out of my whole rock bottom thing. And since then, like it's been just like such a centerpiece in my life. Not just like the religion side of it, but just the lifestyle that comes along with it, because again, depending who you ask, Rastafari can be a religion, but it can also just be the way that you treat people, the way that you treat yourself, the way that you live your life.
If you were to give us key values of what a Rastafari would align with, or what these people that you had met and you guys had this in common, what would they be?
I think that brotherhood is got to be like one of the foundational pieces. Like you said it earlier, I'm light skinned with freckles. When I go to Jamaica and I'm with my community up in Kingston, nobody else has freckles.
Right.
Everybody's dark skinned. They don't look like me. They don't speak like me. But the first time that I ever went up there and met with them, one of the first things they said to me is like, you're one of us.
I love that. They didn't see anything else.
They didn't see anything else. And there has never been any kind of discrimination. There's never been any like side eye. It's always just been you're one of us. So I think that that's one of them. Another one is that I believe that Africa is the birthplace. I think that we have all come from Africa at some point. If you go back far enough, that's where things started. And I think that that's a belief that the majority of Rastafari share. So if you look at brotherhood, if you look at Africa being the birthplace, the other one is really just having a sense of community and living in a way that is sustainable over the long term. I think all Rasta can agree with that. And that's what's so important to me nowadays, living where I do, outside of the city, on a ranch in the mountains, and really just trying to like make my little plot of land entirely self-sufficient. Because if things do get weird at whatever point in the world, at least I know that I'm set up to be able to thrive. And
I think there's almost a huge sense of respect for nature, right?
100%.
And just going through your feed on social, I think that was something that stuck out to me that I'd never really attached to a Rastafari lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Just how I've always operated too. It's like nature brings us, we were saying on the hike, nature brings us back to our true authentic self, right? Like it strips away all the stuff that we're polluted with on the internet and through socialism and through high school and all of the shit that is going on in the world. It's like strip all of that away and be raw and one with nature, and it eliminates all the bullshit, right? And it's such a raw sense of living. Is that a big piece as well?
100%. I mean, I had somebody ask me, I took them on a run in Glacier Park the other day, and right before we met, actually, and they're like, I just get so bored running in the mountains. And that's hard for me to imagine, because there's so much life, there's so much energy around you at all times that I find it difficult to even think about that. But I think that the land can be our greatest teacher because there is so much there. There's the rock, there's the flowers, the trees, the air, the sounds. There's so many different things that are available for you to tap into. And when it comes to running, like I found that when I can get into like that state where I have all of those things combined, I feel untouchable.
Oh yeah.
I feel like there's nothing else in the world that matters.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about like footfall and your breath. And when you can tap into that and you're out in nature in Glacier Park, you go to a whole nother plane.
Yeah.
And it's the most incredible feeling ever.
Oh, man.
That's why I love running so much. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. I feel like there's, through the hardship of running or through the hardship of doing things that are uncomfortable, there's so many lessons, right? And you can't see them unless you're in it long enough, right? And you're pushed past like the discomfort kind of stage. And then if you stop and you're in this euphoric state and you're surrounded by nothing but elements. And to me, I'm like, there's lessons here, right? I remember going through Iceland and having these mental blocks of like having meltdowns, and then when you're in that state of mind, which you can understand that when you have gone and pushed your body to beyond where it should go, you start to try and find stuff, right, to keep you going.
Absolutely.
And one of them for me was hills. Like, it's like they're analogies to life. Like nature is an analogy to life, right? If we go up, it's great. It's fucking hard, right? But I know that if we're going uphill, we're also going to go down and it's going to get easier. But when it gets easier, I know that the next thing's going to happen is we're going to go up again. So it's like I kept finding these analogies that were all around me. I'm like, holy shit, hills are like life. Life goes up, it goes down. It goes up, it goes down. And, you know, ride the highs and push through the lows. And that's what it's all about. Same thing with water. I remember I am a very hard-headed individual that finds change hard to deal with. But that's been my biggest thing on this trip. It's like, no. Like my idea is to just flow like water, man.
That's it.
Flow. Like shit goes wrong, we're going to find a new direction and just keep flowing. And there are so many lessons in nature. Do you think that there's anything that I've given you a couple of my examples that you feel or you see, or lessons that maybe Glacier National Park has taught you?
I think I learn something new all the time, to be honest with you. One of the most recent ones that I've had is I was doing this really, really tough climb in Glacier Park, and I was in that that pain cave, they call it in ultra running, where it's this place where everything hurts, everything sucks, but you're still having to move forward because nobody is going to come to save you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was in that place, and I knew that I needed to stay in it because I was trying to work through something in my head. And for a while, as I was in the pain cave and I was making this tough climb, I was like angry. I was like just thinking to myself, like, God, I hate this climb. But then I don't know, like I had this moment for a second where I realized that, wait a second, why am I angry at the mountain? Why am I angry for this climb? The mountain is trying to teach me something. The mountain is like wanting me to succeed. It's wanting to show me something. And when I made that silly little shift from being angry at the hill because it was steep and realizing that the mountain is actually here for my benefit, it changed my entire way of thinking. And I took that lesson and I brought it into my daily life now, because when things start to get really shitty and I'm feeling stuck, it's the obstacle that's actually here for my benefit. 100%. The incline is here for my benefit. This whatever situation is here to teach me something. And so when I can like shift the way that I think from being angry or frustrated at it to now, what can I learn from it? Man, over the past, few weeks, it's been such a big shift for me.
I mean, Paulo can talk about this, but
we're working through this book. We actually lost it, forgot in the plane. We haven't got it.
Oh no!
Uh-oh. It's called The Obstacle Is the Way.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of it?
I haven't heard of it, but that sounds very much like what the Stoics would talk about.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. So there's a guy named Ryan Holiday.
Okay.
Maybe you heard of him.
Okay.
Huge Stoic guy. He developed this podcast. First of all, he's a writer, and all of his writing is about Stoicism.
Got it.
And he tells a story from the early Stoics, bringing it back to the day-to-day life that we live today, right? How we can apply it, what they would do, and then filled with stories. And the name of the book is The Obstacle Is the Way.
Yeah.
And I mean, numerous quotes from all of them, especially Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
He was maybe, arguably, the main guy that Ryan Holiday lies on. And he says that. He says, what stands in the way, what stands in the way becomes the way. So the impediment to advancement becomes the way. And it's one thing that we are kind of trying to apply as we made this huge shift from a regular mundane life to taking a trailer around the country and getting more in touch with nature. And you guys shared the experience that we have with nature. To me, one of the things that I was able to kind of capture is it makes you believe, even for a second, when you're out there and you see some stuff, that there's got to be something, a higher power, 100%. Whatever that is, right? Yeah. Because it's just unacceptable for you to see something like Yosemite, for instance. And you're like, man, how is this even possible? Right. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't think of something like that. Yeah. You can put in the screen of a phone and you're like, oh my, like, what is this? Yeah. And then for a second, you're like, man, we're so small and there's so much to learn in this space. And like she said, we're continuously and constantly polluted by the day-to-day and everything that's around us. And when you get out there, it's almost like pulling a plug and like putting that plug elsewhere. Yep. And you're able to recharge your body in a whole different way, a whole different level. 100%. That it's very different to me, because I didn't grow up with this. Yeah. I didn't grow up outdoorsy and doing all these things. So to me, it's all new. And being all new, it's all like new stimuli that come. And I'm like, well, this is insane. Yeah. So we've seen some stuff, we've gone through some stuff that was insane. I remember there was one night that we were camping out, Saguaro in Arizona, and doing a camping overnight, and we were having fun. We're hanging by the bonfire with friends that came to visit, and then all of a sudden, and you couldn't even see the silhouette of the mountains, pitch black. Just a little bonfire that we had going on, and then all of a sudden we see this amber-like neon thing popping out of the mountain, and we all start going nuts, and we're like, what the heck?
We'd had a little bit of whiskey, so
a lot of whiskey. So first we saw was this glow behind the mountain, and we're like, guys, look at that glow. Something's going on there. And
I immediately was like, we're gonna die.
It's a fire.
It's a fire.
It's a fire. And we're like, dude, it's a fire. And then we see, and literally, imagine, you can close your eyes for a second, you guys are listening. Imagine it's pitch black. You see a glow. The glow basically delineates this silhouette of the mountain, far from you. And then on top of the silhouette, there's a little amber-like just popping up. And we're like, dude, what's that amber? And for a second, there was a friend that he wasn't feeling too well. And he wasn't drinking whiskey like we were. And I'm like, dude, you got to come out of here.
And give us your sober eyes.
Please make sense of what's going on. Help us. Right. And sure enough, he comes out of the tent. He goes, what's going on? I'm like, dude, look at that. What is that? And he goes, I think it's an UFO. I'm like, oh my God, grab the phones. Grab your phones. I'm like, he's sober. Grab your phones. And
you grab the binoculars at that point.
And I'm like, we have binoculars. Get the beanies. And we take the binocular. And I'm like, oh my God. And they're like, what do you see? I'm like,
he was crying.
Oh my God.
He was just
crying.
crying.
What do you see? I'm like, that's the moon. And it was a moonrise, which I didn't even know that existed like that. Oh, wow. Just the same way that we go to the beach like early in the morning every now and then we see the sun rising. Yeah, yeah. It was the moon rising.
Which, by the way, we're gonna sound really funny now, because after this happened, I went home and was like, "Does the moon rise?" The moon rises every single night, but because of where we've lived our whole life, we've never seen it.
But no one
we're so polluted with life.
It.
Yeah. It was
for
wild.
that one moment. No one on the planet saw what we saw. Yeah. Unless you were at that side of the mountain at that very time, at the very place. And man, it started coming up, and I gave him the binoculars. I took 2 steps forward, and I was like. And I started crying. I started crying.
Of course.
And I'm like, this is. And then it came out and literally unplugged from the mountain.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Up on us, and I'm like, this is. Insane.
I think it's one of those things, right? It was such a beautiful thing. But if you go back to regular life, right, and what that beautiful moment gave for us, or what Glacier National Park does for you, there's so many people that live in the city in a really fast, hustling and bustling space that are seeking for something to fix them, right? Yeah. It's like, therapy's great, but I need a therapist, or I need this recovery practice, or I need to go through these stages of a retreat to try and find peace, right? Yeah. Everyone is searching and trying so hard to find peace. when I was younger, I was raised in, exposed to outdoor stuff from a very young age. But I didn't realize then that my parents were doing that because they couldn't afford to take us to the fancy places that everyone else could go to. I felt like I had a rich childhood, but we were in the woods building forts and shit.
Yeah.
Years go by, I go through a whole lot of shit in life. So I'm taken away from that stuff that I think makes me feel like safe and at home. And now that I'm older, it's become cool again to be out in the woods and in nature. But I don't think it took until... I mean, I've always known I like the outdoors, but being alone, January of this year, in the woods for 3 days with no one around but bears, at like low 20s, it gives you a sense of an understanding of who you are when you're alone, right? Because the rest of my life is always supported, and there's always people around, there's always people watching. And it's almost like tapping into a whole different space within my mind of who I really am as a human being, what I really stand for, and where I want to go. Do you often escape into the woods and do something similar?
So I think that a lot of people would see going into nature as disconnecting. I kind of see it the other way. I kind of see it as reconnecting, because initially that's where we all came from. Originally was dirt and the hills and the trees, and I feel like any time that I go back there, that's when I feel my best. That's when I feel my most creative. That's when I feel my most recharged and clear on like what my sense of purpose is even, and like what really matters to me. Because I know for a fact that if I'm dealing with anything that's stressing me out, which I have a high level of stress as it is, but I know that when I go into the mountains, especially in Glacier Park, where that energy is just, it's just palpable. You feel it, and I know you guys felt it too. But like everything just goes away from me, and I always come out a better person. Knowing exactly what I need to do, exactly where I need to be. And it's always kind of been my therapy, my church. And going back to Rastafari, I think that that's another one of those things, is that being in nature and being outdoors is church. And it really is that way for me too.
Now, we've talked about you, and I think you're a fascinating person, right? But this is a great opportunity for us to lead into business, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to start in a place that's probably way too far ahead to understand how you made fitness your life and how you made it your career.
Yeah.
But I read a post the other day, which is going to tune into exactly what you just said. And I think that you were in a headspace that maybe you didn't want to be in, pretty heavy mindset at that moment. And you're like, fuck, I got to go give this. You do public speaking. I got to go stand on stage and inspire and motivate these people, and I'm not in the right state. So there's a photo of you on stage, covered in sweat, and you're talking to a shit ton of people. Can you tell us about that experience? Because I think that piece right there is really important.
So I'm not going to pretend like everything in my life is wonderful now, and I'm always on top and feeling wonderful. Even today, waking up this morning was tough for me to get out of bed. I think that probably for the last 2.5 months now, I've been feeling really heavy, and I think I know what those things are, but I'm not fully clear. So recently I was in Helena, Montana, which is our state's capital, and I was at an event for about 500 real estate agents. And I was set to deliver a talk that afternoon on health and how to change the way that you think about health and being able to reintegrate it into your busy real estate lifestyle. Again, that morning, woke up just not feeling good, not really wanting to give my talk, feeling unmotivated. And I have a life rule that I run every day, no matter what. Doesn't matter, I run. And I didn't want to run. I didn't want to talk, I didn't want to run. And so as I'm like working through my self-talk and I'm going through it, I'm asking myself, well, okay, if you don't want to run today, what do you want to do? Well, I want to stay in my hotel room. Do you want to run? No. Do you want to run a half marathon? No. Do you want to run a full marathon? Hell no, I don't want to run a full marathon. I got to go give a talk in 5 hours. Okay, you don't want to run a full marathon? You should probably do that.
Yeah.
You should probably do that. So I grab my shit, I get out the door, and I'm like, all right, I've got 5 hours before I need to be on stage. Let's go run a marathon. So I grab myself and I go. And I get out there and I knock out 26 something miles. and I make it back to stage just in time, like 5 minutes or so before I'm set to go on stage. I didn't shower. I didn't change my clothes. I apologized to the woman that was micing me because I was drenched and smelling like a gym bag and feet.
Yeah, I know that smell very well.
Oh man, but I'll tell you what, going up on stage and speaking to a room of people that are dressed well and smelling good, and I'm looking like a fat slug on stage because I'm gross and everything. Was actually like one of the best things that I could have done in that moment. Because while I didn't look the part or anything like that, I think subliminally it was a powerful message to everybody in the room that day, because my talk was on doing hard things. And if you want to be able to get to a deeper understanding of who you are and what you're capable of, you have to be willing to do those things. You have to learn sometimes how to force yourself to act. And it was difficult for me that morning to get up, but my big takeaway in my conversation with them was just that. Like, sometimes you have to do the dirty work. Mm-hmm. And I didn't actually tell them what I had done until close to the end of my presentation, and somebody asked me, why
are you so sweaty? And why do you smell like a gym bag?
Nervous.
Yeah, exactly. And I told them that, and everyone just erupted with laughter and applause. And I think it really solidified the fact that we have to do hard things. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about that conversation was it ended up being probably the best talk on stage I've ever given.
Amazing.
So it was a powerful reminder for them and for me.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's what David Goggins says. The definition of self-discipline is to do shit when you don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
And it's almost like a muscle. I know that sounds cheesy, but I go through seasons, right, of like being super psycho about doing things that I don't want to do, just to like reconfirm to myself that I can still do that shit.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it makes me feel sharp, right? And if I don't challenge myself, I feel like I'm getting stagnant, and that my truth is my truth, and my stagnant self is probably someone else's high-performing self.
For sure.
But I think that once you start to tap into your own potential and you start to see what you're capable of and accept the scariest truth that it's ultimately all up to you, and that goes for anyone in this world. You can become an ultra runner if you want to.
Yeah.
You can open 8 businesses if you want to. You can run a marathon if you want to. And this goes for absolutely anyone, whether you have 1 leg, 2 legs, 1 arm, 2 arms, choice is yours, right?
It doesn't matter.
Which is a really intimidating thought, but I think the most important truth that we all start to understand. I said to Paulo, and we talk about this a lot, and we always attach your state of mind to our physical output, right? Like there's always, we can look good. Yeah, we can have you run a full marathon and get you a 6-pack and blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff is important. And that's what I guess our career is, right? But I've never focused on that. Any program that we ever write, we're not talking about weight loss. We don't give a shit how much you weigh. We're not here for before and after pictures. Like, I want you to write a story of who you are on day 1, and then I want you to write a letter to yourself at the end. Like, who are you? What did you tap into? What did you discover about yourself during this stage? And I think it's a really scary place to be, right? Because we call it like waking up or having this enlightenment stage. Maybe you hit rock bottom to find that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have incredible people that are in your life that like plant these little seeds that will start to grow as you start to get older. But I think staying woke or waking up to your own potential is a really scary place to be, because then the sky is the limit, right? And it's up to you.
Yeah.
But do you think that you will always be this way? Do you think that I want to get into relationships here because I know that you have a daughter, and I want to talk about that. Do you think that this is something that you wish that you could instill in your daughter to continue doing? Like, tell me about that, because I know you and I have got a similar. Yeah. We're aligned on that for sure.
I think that I'm always going to be as self-accountable as I am. Like, I'm not perfect when it comes to that, but I know that I'm always going to be driving forward. And I think part of it is because I have a hard time sitting still. But I think a bigger part of it is that I've had probably 4 situations in my life where I about died. I had one time where I actually did die, pronounced dead.
Wow.
I came back from that.
Let's put a pin on that.
But what came from those near-death experiences was the fact that I'm nobody special and my life can be taken from me at any moment. Yeah. Why the hell was I saved? Mm-hmm. And I think that when you have those near-death experiences, you start to really understand the value of time. Mm-hmm. And you appreciate it for what it is. And so I think that I'm always going to be trying to maximize every moment of every day. So I don't think I'm going to change in that respect. But I think that when it comes to my daughter, I've definitely instilled a work ethic in her, much like my dad instilled that in me. And I see my kid now, she's a beautiful 13-year-old, compassionate, kind-hearted kid who's just an absolute savage when it comes to gymnastics. She's a 3-time state champion. She's just so smart. So she knows how to work. And I think a big part of that has come from her watching me work. Mm-hmm. And I just can't be any more grateful for that.
Yeah.
And, when I say all of these things, right, a lot of people that listen find it so hard. It's like frustrating for them. It's like you don't understand, right? That always comes up. Or it's easy for you to say because you do what you do, right? But I wasn't always this way. We aren't born this way. Some people maybe. I definitely wasn't. I am not there yet. It's going to be a lifelong journey to continue being 100%. This person, right? Because the same person that's here, sat here right now, is the same person that was a total dickhead 10 years ago. And I am so in tune with who that person was and who I am now that it's like an ultimate goal, right? To never, ever let myself go back there. Absolutely. And I go through the same thing. I'll wake up and feel like I feel the demons knocking, and I know they're there and I know they want to scream, but I have to continuously put effort in to make sure that I remain here or move forward, just definitely not backwards.
Yes.
So from someone listening, for us, that it seems so easy now, right? It wasn't always that way. What kind of things do you do to keep trying to make sure that you can continue doing this life that you're living? Just to help someone from the outside in that's listening to this conversation, maybe pick up a couple nuggets to take away with them.
Here's what's worked for me the best. Now, by nature, I am not like a rule follower. I like to do my own thing. I like to carve my own path. However, what has really helped me over time is 2 things. Number one is I know that it's difficult to make decisions when you're unsure of who you are or where it is you want to go. So the first thing that's really helped my life is I've created what I call an ethos, a warrior ethos. It sounds cheesy, but I see myself as a warrior in a lot of ways because of what I've gone through and where I want to be. And I need to be a warrior and able to accomplish that. So I created an ethos. And in my ethos, there are certain things I stand for and there are certain things that I don't. And by having that ethos in place, a set of principles or tenets or whatever you want to call them, it makes my day-to-day life so much easier. Because if I know that I stand for X, then I know that I need to say yes or no to it. Mm-hmm. And it's just so much easier to make those daily decisions when you know what it is that you stand for. So number one, I would encourage you to create your own set of principles or tenets or things that you stand for. That way, when you're presented in a situation, it's so much easier for you to say yes or to say no. So I think that's thing number one. That's really helped me. Thing number 2 is I've created a fun set of life rules. I currently have 5. I may have another 5 in a week. I don't know. I just add them as I go.
I think I read one of them. I might have to adopt it.
Which
as long as I bring a towel. That you will always jump into a lake if you see one.
100%. If I'm running in the
mountains.
I'm a dipper. Are you?
I'm a dipper. Yeah, man.
He's a dipper.
We do that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how cold
Whenever
it
we go on
is.
these trips, I'm like, oh man, are we dipping?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we can't. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I'm a dipper. Yeah, I like that.
You have to, man. You have to. Absolutely have to. And again, I'm not a rule follower by nature, but my life rules are fun. I want to follow those rules because, well, they're mine. And they're fun. So having a set of life rules, I think, is also really important because it keeps you on track and it helps to really keep you self-accountable. And that's made a huge difference in my life.
And keeps it fun, right? Because you only create rules that you want to do if they're your own rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you share the other ones?
My life rules?
Yeah.
So Life rule number 1 is I'm never too busy to stop and pet the dogs. I don't care if I'm in a race.
I love that.
I don't care if I'm running in the mountains. I don't care if I'm late for a meeting and I pass by a dog on the street. I'm laying on the floor with the dog and I'm gonna engage.
Love that. I love that.
I don't care. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is I'll never turn down a good cookie.
A cookie?
I like
oh,
that.
yeah.
I'll never turn down a good cookie.
I like that.
You guys are aligned on that, for sure.
I love
you guys are dippers and cookie monsters.
Yeah. And that's my weakness. I talk about all the self-discipline I have when it comes to cookies. I have none. Life rule number 3 is that if I'm ever coming across a lake in the mountains, I'm getting in. 100%. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Even if I don't have a change of clothes, I'll dry off. Doesn't matter.
I like that.
I love it.
So I'm always diving in head first.
That's amazing.
Rule number 4 is that I run every day now. Doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter the weather. It doesn't matter anything. I'm just running every day.
Even if it's for 10 minutes, 30 minutes?
Doesn't matter. Yep.
As long as you're running. I love that.
As long as I'm running. And
it's a healthy rule.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So those are my life rules at the moment. And like I said, I'll make them up as I go along. But so far, those are my big ones.
I dig
really
that.
Like that. Yeah. I love it.
And now we don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but you said that you've kissed death quite a few times, and there's been 4 experiences in your life that have kind of helped you remind yourself to keep living.
Yeah.
That isn't the case for a lot of people. Some people go through an experience that could show them way too close to the edge of death that it redefines their entire life, and almost like a victim mindset versus using it as fuel to become a better individual and to keep living. Yeah. So can you help us understand a little bit about those and the lessons you learned?
So let me take you back. I'm going to share one. Let me take you back to November 8th, 1999. I'm living in California on the Central Coast, and this was pre-bull riding, okay? So it's before that, and I'm a skateboarder. I love to skate. And I'm at my junior high. I'm with my mom in the car, and I'm having an argument about the fact that I want to go hang out with my friends, but she wants me to come home. And I have my skateboard in between my knees. I'm in the passenger seat of the car, and in like a moment's notice, as we're arguing, I grab the door, open it up, run off, and I take off to my friend's house. My mom's yelling at me to come back. I don't listen. I'm gone. What I wanted to do that night is I wanted to go skateboard. And there's a group of skaters that met every Wednesday night. And later on that evening, the sun's starting to set. My buddy Ryan and I, we grab our skateboards and we head probably, it's probably like an 8 or 9 mile ride from here. And we take off. And we're coming down this really steep hill. I've got this helmet on that I borrowed from his sister, but I don't have the helmet clipped. We're coming down this hill, we're going really fast, and the buckle of the helmet is starting to like whip me in the neck, and it's kind of irritating me. So I buckle the helmet, and we come up on a freeway off-ramp. And as we come up on the off-ramp, there's a crosswalk. And I do this little ollie from the sidewalk into the crosswalk. What I didn't realize is that the light had turned green. And as I get into the crosswalk, my last visual was a white or a black car coming right at me from the side. I woke up the next day in the critical care unit in the hospital there in my hometown, and what I found out was that I had been run over by a car.
Oh my gosh.
How old?
I was 13.
Oh my gosh.
I had been run over by a car, and the details and the scary part of all of this was not only was I ran over by a car, but once the woman had stopped and realized that I had been underneath, and this is all in accordance to the police, her report, and my friend Ryan, she had backed up to try to get off of me because I was pinned underneath, realized that I wasn't coming off, and so she drove forward again to try to get off of me, all the while being drugged underneath the vehicle. God. It was a really tough situation. But before I tell you that, here's what's really interesting about this story. Now, we talk about like divine intervention, and we talk about like right place, right time. As all of this is going on, and I couldn't make this up if I tried, As this is happening, a tow truck driver is driving in the opposite direction of where my accident is happening, sees what's going on, pulls over, and I'm pinned underneath the car. My right rear arm is pinned under the back tire. Tow truck driver gets out, runs over to the car. There's a bystander that gets out of her car and comes over to help the tow truck driver. Tow truck driver literally lifts the back rear tire of this car that I'm pinned under while the bystander pulls me out from underneath the car. This is a little Dodge Stealth, and if you're not familiar with the Dodge Stealth, there's very little clearance on these kinds of cars. The man lifts the car up, the woman pulls me out. Guess what's 2 cars back from the woman that hit me? An ambulance.
No way.
An ambulance.
It's amazing.
Isn't that incredible?
That's insane.
Within, I don't even know how much time it was, but a very short amount of time, I'm pulled out, I'm put on the ambulance, and I'm on my way to the hospital.
So care started right away.
Wow. If it had been there, that would have been a different story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who knows?
And then you get to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
What is the situation? You wake up the next day, and what's the situation? You're like,
my
what?
first thought the next day was, where am I? What's happened? I figure out I got all these tubes in me. I realize something's wrong, and I'm like, where's Ryan?
Oh.
Where's Ryan? And Ryan was right there.
Oh, man. And your mom, the fact that you got out the car.
My mom was there too.
You'll never say goodbye on a bad note again, I'm sure.
Never again. So that was a really scary situation to be in. I broke several bones. I still have nerve damage in my arm. My right arm is, I don't know if you could see this on camera, but my right arm is shorter than my left because I broke my right arm, my right clavicle, my right scapula, my right hip, nerve damage in my hands. So I still don't have any feeling of my thumb, pointer finger, and then into my forearm in here.
Whoa.
So, but here's what's interesting. Remember I was telling you about that helmet, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
The helmet that was whipping me in the face.
Yeah. Why'd you do that up?
I buckled it probably about 100 yards before the accident.
Insane.
Absolutely insane.
And now, after this has happened, are these questions you can constantly ask yourself, like, why did I do my buckle up?
Why did I buckle my helmet? Why was I spared?
Why was that ambulance there? How did that guy lift that vehicle? Like, just so many things come into play, right?
It's almost that feeling of unplugging from the matrix, right? Mm-hmm. You stop seeing the not the fake life, but you stop seeing this thing that everyone worships, this life that we live. Yeah. And then you start seeing from a different perspective, and you're like, no, man, this shit can be pulled from you at any second. Any second, right? Wow.
And
people die for less every day. So why was I saved? What was I meant to accomplish? What was I meant to do? And I think that's has been one of the earliest catalysts for me to push as hard as I do and to stay as curious as I am. What the hell am I supposed to be doing? So
That's
I have
insane.
no problem. I have no problem like completely switching things up nowadays and trying something new.
Yeah.
I have no problem doing it.
Now that's a personal experience that you've had that's kind of reminded you to live, right, and appreciate life.
Yeah.
We've had too many losses, right, in our life that I think switched and pushed us to flick that switch of like, we live by our motto, which is remember to live before you die, because I don't think that youth is on your side. And I think that my whole life that has been in my brain, which is why I used to burn the candle and do fucking dumb shit. Yeah. And in the moment of doing dumb shit, I remember being like, I'm young, I'm okay, I'm young, you know?
100%.
And unfortunately, we lost 2 people within a week, just a few years ago now. And it's forced us to be like, okay, why are we waiting? What are we waiting for? Like, you could die tomorrow, I could die tomorrow. I don't want to, or we could get to our deathbed and go, fuck, man, I wish we did this, that, and the other. And now it's like this ultimate goal, maybe a little bit too extreme for the average person, to just live. Yeah. Have you had, I think I did read something that you've had loss, and it kind of forces you to appreciate life and to start living for those that can't live, right? That's been a goal for us, rather than being sad in those moments, which obviously we go through those moments too, but remembering the people that have gone, they wouldn't want us to hold back, you know? So to live for those that can't live right now. Yeah. Is there anything you've experienced like that?
So I think that I've experienced a lot of loss even recently, and I think that that's kind of why it's been hard for me to get up every morning the past couple months, because just a couple months ago I lost 2 people in a week as well.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so back-to-back loss is tough. But I think prior to that, in 2013, I think I have experienced my greatest loss yet, which was my father figure, my coach, my mentor, my football coach. Like, this man was my best friend. And it was when I went over to his house one morning and was trying to figure out why he wasn't answering his door, because I know he's an early morning person, ending up having to break into his home, only to find him dead in bed. And I think that has been my greatest loss in terms of a person. But what it has also taught me is that at any point, that can happen to me too, because nobody had expected him to die, at least not anytime soon, because it was just 4 days prior to me finding him that we were at a rodeo together. Me, my daughter, him, his daughter, and my kid's mom. And what was interesting about that moment was at the end of the night, he had driven to the rodeo, right? So at the end of the night, he drove us home, and we get into the car, we get out of the car, and he's like, everybody huddle up. So we're in my driveway, we're huddled up. He's got one arm around me, and he's got his other arm around my daughter, and then we're all in this real tight circle. And it was the first time that we had all spent time together. And like, as we're all in tight, he says, we're family now. And he kissed me on the forehead, and he kissed my daughter on the forehead. And that was the last time I ever saw him. That was the last thing that he ever said to me, was we're family now. And he kissed me, he kissed my kid. And it was 4 days later that I found him.
Man.
And so it's at any point, you never know.
Mm-hmm. And is his daughter young?
She's a little bit younger than I am. She's 31, so she's 4 years younger than me.
And you guys are still super tight?
She was just here a couple weeks ago. She stays with us twice a year. Comes up. She
awesome.
Lives in California, but she comes and stays with us twice a year.
Man,
Yeah.
that's cool. I'm so sorry, man. Life is so fickle, right? It's
yes.
It's one of those things, and a lot of things don't make sense, and I've always tried to find the answer, and I've just stopped trying to do that now, Yeah. But one thing that we can do is not stop living, right? Because I hope that no one ever has to experience anything like that, or having a visual of finding someone or seeing someone pass in front of you is something that it's trauma, and it's 100%. Something really hard to let go of. Yeah. But it's a heavy thing. But I think it also pushes us to try and see what else there is, 100%. Right? And to try and live a little bit more. And my goal now is not for anyone to experience that, but that taught me the craziest lesson. So now it's everyone else, stop worrying so much, just start fucking living, living. Because I hope you don't have to experience something like that to find that gear, but find it now.
Yeah, I work with a lot of people who sometimes struggle at making those decisions to move forward, or what should I do here, what should I do there, and I think that I don't really understand why, but it has always been a little bit easier for me to just act. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the foundational things that I've found for people that struggle with taking action on things is that it doesn't matter what the action is, it doesn't matter what route you choose to go down, because there's always going to be a lesson in moving forward. Mm-hmm. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, mm-hmm. there's a lesson there. And I think that sometimes we get caught in thinking, even overthinking. We get caught in overthinking in terms of taking action. But one of the things that's helped me the most is just realizing that it doesn't matter what action I take right now. As long as I'm just choosing to move forward today, in this moment, right now, there's a lesson in it, whether mm-hmm. I'm right or whether I'm wrong, if I choose to pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that has been one of the biggest lessons that I learned from my coach that I lost. His name is Coach C, Coach Cervantes, was to just continue to move forward and making those decisions every day to find some kind of progress and to not overthink it.
Yeah. It really doesn't matter where you're trying to go.
No, it doesn't.
You're going to find out.
Yeah.
As long as you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's tough, man. So when she was saying that that 1 week we lost 2 people really close to us. It was a Tuesday. It was March 27th, right? Our friend passed. Cancer. It wasn't not unexpected. She was in a really bad situation. But that happened. And then March 30th is my dad's birthday. And we wake up in the morning and I'm like, man, I gotta call my dad. And then we go to the hospital to take...
Which is horrible actually to think about what we were doing. We were taking our friend that had passed, her firstborn son, secondborn son. She died while being 6 months pregnant with stage 4 colon cancer. But the baby diagnosed, the baby survived. So we had to take him in to get like a checkup because he was so premature. And Jeff, her husband, was the doctor's office for the baby was on one side of the street, and the hospital where Jess had passed was on the other side. Yeah. And he had to go pick up her death certificate. It was like a really rough day. And I remember being in the baby office with Courtney and the boys, Jeff coming back to try and find us after picking up this death certificate. Yeah. And then we went outside, and I just remember someone saying to me, like, what the fuck has happened to Paulo? And Paulo's on the floor, and I'll let him take it from there. But man, that was a pretty rough situation, right, babe? Yeah.
So that morning, my brother had texted all of us because it was my dad's birthday. But he texted, it was a passage from the Bible. It essentially says, I'm going to translate because it's in Portuguese.
Oh, that's what you have on your phone?
Yeah, so basically, it's a passage that says, and so we all need to be prepared because the Son of the God will come in the moment where we expect the least. And then that was at 5:40 in the morning. And then this is around 10 a.m. and we're in the doctor's office. I'm like, man, I gotta call my dad. And then my dad calls me. I'm like, holy shit, I missed. I should have called before. Because it was his birthday. And then he calls me saying that my brother had passed. And that was the very last message. And it was like one very, very, very full week. And it's tough, but it's at least knowing that this very last interaction was something meaningful. Yeah. That you can take with you. Yeah. It makes things a little better. You know what I mean?
You saved the text.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that. I've never heard that story. That's pretty crazy. But it does. It's like a heavy experience, right? That pushes you to almost want to just run away, crawl under a rock, and never ever come back out. Right. And I think that we felt that entirely, especially like having a social image online, and like everything that we do is put out there. Yeah. This was probably one of the biggest times that it rocked our fucking life, and was like, well, shit. How do we deal with this, right? Yeah, we've got two options here. Yeah. We can either run away and delete Instagram and because I was afraid of how I was going to deal with it. I was afraid of how we as a husband and wife were going to deal with it. I was afraid of everything, right? And that was a moment of having a really hard conversation with yourself, which is like, my brain goes to, I don't want to put my personal shit online. My friend just died. My brother-in-law just died. Like, this is so heavy and so raw that like, this is not anyone else's business. And it makes you go kind of like against the world. And then it was like, hang on, those people aren't coming back, right? And that's the unfortunate truth that we can all know from this. And there's no way that that's going to change. These individuals had so much love to give life. They were so alive and wanted to grab life by the balls and squeeze it. Yeah. So let's try and do that. And let's try and spin this situation to try and do something great for those that don't have a platform or power to do that, right? So we tried to turn around, and we took Iceland as an opportunity to just pour pain into that road. And I don't think I could do that now, without that pain driving me to push through every day. Yeah. I don't know if I could have done that. Now on these ultras, I have a vision that I wish I could get rid of, and I'll only bring it out if I need it. Do you have, it's like a tool, right? Like in that pain cave, when you've got not much further to go, but you really want to fucking quit, your body's shutting down. Do you have any replays, or do you have any moments that you go to, or do you go into this arsenal in your mind that you usually keep closed to push through? Or what is the inner conversation, I guess, at that point?
I think that what drives me, there's two things that I go to in those moments. I know one of the things that's hurt me the most in my life is after I lost Coach C, because I really spiraled fast. I was engaged at the time and couldn't manage myself as a partner anymore. So we called off the engagement. I had to move back in with my mom. I had gained 30 pounds. I had stopped caring about me. I had spent every dollar that I had trying to buy back my happiness. Mm-hmm. I spent all of my money.
Could you give me an example of what you were trying something that you purchased?
So, this is so silly. Two things I remember doing the most. Flying myself places. I would buy tickets to California. I would buy tickets to Arizona, because the thought of just being on a plane and going somewhere was so helpful for me. I was excited. I was happy. But the thing is the moment I got off the plane, I was like,
the heck am I going to do?
What am I going to do
by
myself?
Yeah.
This isn't helping at all. So I would fly myself places. Once a week, I would take myself out to the fanciest restaurant in town by myself, dress up, get a big order of food. I'd buy the most expensive thing on the menu. I'd have $130 tickets every week. But then I'm eating alone. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting in my car alone. And I'm driving back to my mom's house to go in the basement with surrounded by boxes of things that I bought to try to make myself feel better. And I just realized, like, here I am in this place with just boxes of things. But one of the things that drives me the most is while all this was going on and I had the wedding called off and all that, I was a shitty parent. I was a bad dad. I was unpresent. I wasn't focused on my kid. And that still kind of eats at me today, because I lost out on 6 months of her life because of what had happened to me and how I chose to respond to it. So I think that, like, when I'm in that pain cave and I'm like really going through it when I'm in a race or a big climb, I think about that. I think about the pain that I feel from that, because it drives me to never want to be like that again. Mm-hmm. And to really, like, show my kid what's possible for her. Mm-hmm. I think that one of my biggest driving forces is continuing to show her what's possible by things that I do. And so I don't think she knows that. I've never told her that, but a lot of the things that I do is driven because, I want my kid to realize that, there's a completely other level of what's possible for her too. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best way of teaching, is just by leading.
By leading.
As a child, it's hard to receive words and know what to do with them, 100%. Right? It's like you're telling me what to do versus if you're showing, then it just becomes ingrained into them whether they like it or not. Exactly. It wasn't forced. It's just a part of your life. Yeah. I think it's admirable. And I just from the little pieces that I've seen, like, you're a rock and killer dad, man. Thank you. For real. It's pretty cool to see.
I agree. And as a child, you really don't think that. But as you get older, and I bet when you become a father, the role, when you play that role, the role modeling, like, because they mimic everything that you do.
100%.
And there is nothing else. They take stuff from the world outside, but to see you wake up every morning, whatever time that you wake up, crack of dawn, and say, I'm going to go to Glacier to do this. Why, Dad? I need it because of X, Y, and Z. There's really no need. Besides the fact that something you want to do, and you're going to do it. Yeah. So for a child to see that, okay, so if I just want to do stuff, I can just go out there and do stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You just said something 100%. That, like, made me go, bing. Through all of the struggle in life, right, which we all have, I've always questioned, like you've questioned, like, why did I survive? Yeah. Why was that ambulance there? Why? I've been in some really rough spots, and I've always wondered, and I still do, why the fuck did I come home? Yes. Why did I not go over the edge? Because I was so close so many times. Imagine your daughter, I was 15 years old, dating a guy that's in jail for attempted murder. Like, my parents were good people. My parents are amazing people. And now that I'm an adult, I know that and I see that. Yeah. But I always wondered, like, before I came to the US, I wasn't living at home. My mom kicked my ass out of the house. Why did I get on that plane? Because my life would change once I came here, right? That was like a second opportunity. And I've always questioned why? But just listening to you guys here, it has to be my parents. Yeah. And it wasn't one of these, like, you need to do this. It was like, they're good people. And whether I liked it or not at that stage, that's why I came home. Yeah. So all these things that you're doing, you don't need to sit there and like explain this is wrong, this is right. Yeah, those lessons come, but like just being a good person and doing the right thing as an individual, that's got to be the reason why I came home, right? Like, there's the reason, even though I thought in the moment I hated my parents and they're the worst people in the world, like they did nothing but try and parent. And now as an adult, fuck, that's got to be so hard. You're just a normal person trying to create this human, and then everything you do, they mimic and they hate you and they blame you for all of their problems and their this, that, and the other. It's like, man, parenting, terrifying. 100%. Seems so scary.
The biggest lesson, I think, and we're not parents.
Two fur babies.
I was going to say, you got two little babies, right?
Exactly. It's not the one that you sit down and say, listen, let me teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
No, it's the one that happens in silence every single day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Without you even thinking.
Yep.
That's the biggest lesson. That's when your daughter, when she grows older and you're older, she's going to say, no, you know, what I learned the most about my dad, maybe in a podcast, is the fact that he did this, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and you'd be like, whoa, but I thought I taught her many other things.
Yeah.
Which you did. But she's going to absorb the continuous show of this is what you do.
Yeah,
the consistency there. And perhaps maybe that's also a reason that you went back, is because you knew that they were just there. They were consistent. They were always
consistent.
Yeah, they were.
Consistent.
Because I always used to question, you know, I think trauma has happened in the past, but not directly from my parents, you know?
Yeah.
And I always used to be like, why am I the way that I am? Why you're trying to question so much stuff? But I think if you continuously question it and you don't find the answer, that used to rock my world. Yeah. It's like I have a problem, you know?
Yeah.
But I think as age and time has gone on, and the more I understand my parents as people as well, like that was a really fucking rough thing that I think that all of us go through, right? Because I always say, like, there's a guy called Ant Middleton. He's in the UK SAS.
Okay.
And he talks about, like, we're all victims. Most people have a victim mindset. And I love this idea of, like, our parents obviously have to protect us, right? Or our guardians, whoever raises us, they wrap us up in cotton wool. You fall, they hold you and rock you until you're okay. Someone's mean to you, they hug you and they tell you that you're beautiful and that they're wrong and you're right. Like, they treat us this way because they have to. But then we get to a certain age and no one sits us down and says, all right, girl or boy, like, the shit's on you now, right? There's no one that's going to come here and protect you. No one's going to hug you if you fall. No one's going to come pick you up if you fall down. Like, that conversation never happens. And unless you have the initiative or the perspective or the ability or awareness, maybe is what I'm looking for, to understand that analogy, we don't. We continuously follow the rest of our life, which majority of people do, blaming, Kobe Bryant's quote, right? Like, I have nothing in common with others people that blame others for their lack of success. Yeah. Most people do that. I cannot make it to this because of this, or this happened to me in my past, so I am an alcoholic, or I am depressed because of this happened. All of these things are real, right? And I 100% can understand that. But what you do with these events or with this trauma or with these experiences is what's going to dictate what happens next.
100%.
I had a fucking weird thing happen on our 30th. It was like, I kept trying to blame other people of why am I like this? Something must have happened that caused behavior to fall back on me. And then you stop and go, hang on a second. Let's stop romanticizing what we thought family is supposed to be, what we thought a sibling relationship was supposed to be, what we thought parenting was supposed to be. And once we can kind of get rid of that and redefine what it really is, not what it's supposed to be, then we stop blaming and stop being so angry, and we just redefine what we want from each of these relationships. And rather than blaming them, it's like, no, now it's up to me to recreate the truth, right, of what we want it to be.
That 2.0.
Oh, yeah, man.
And that was something that I was kind of stuck in myself for that period of 6 months after losing Coach C, and coming out the other side when I had this defining moment, or that moment of no return, realizing that I am not a product of my circumstances. Mm-hmm. I am a product of my decisions.
I love that.
And it's in the past 6 months, I've been a product of my circumstance. well, Coach C died. That's why I'm 30 pounds overweight. That's why my marriage fell apart. That's why I'm living at my mom's. That's really not the case. That may have happened, yes, but I chose to stop working out. I chose to stop being a great dad. I chose all of that. And I think once you have that realization and it finally lands with you, it's like that awakening where it's like, okay, I need to do something different. I can't go back. I can't continue to go down this road because it's not serving me. It's not making me better. In fact, it's making me worse.
Correct.
But sometimes that moment takes a really long time for it to actually land with us.
Yeah.
And that's why we struggle so long and believe our own stories. But man, getting that thought to finally land is what changed everything for me.
And even if one tries to argue that we are, in fact, the product of our circumstances, if you just wait long enough, you understand that that was a trigger for some shit that happened. You hit rock bottom, but you learned the lesson and you came up and you became who you are today. Yeah. And you, if I'm right, the timeline matches. That's when you kind of dove into the Rastafari.
That was it.
So that's what I'm saying. Maybe you wouldn't been who you are today if it wasn't a lesson like that, right? The more we try to do this diving and self-development, Tony Robbins says that all the time. There's a show that he confronts this girl and she says, oh, I'm damaged because my father left me. And he goes, okay. And I blame him for the person who I am. Right. You got to blame him for the person who you are, but you also got to blame him for being this person who doesn't take shit from anyone, the person who's the first person to get in the office and work harder than anyone. So when we look at role models and situations, we always tend to pick the negative sides of it and say, that's what's shaping me.
Yes.
But you forget about all the other lessons that taught you, that shaped you in a positive way. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So if you wait long enough, those things, and no, we are a product of the circumstance, yes, but you got to look at the whole thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Someone really close to us, maybe Hannah will know what that is like, look, the idea of family and the idea of unity and the role model that we had, you know, I grew up and my parents did X, Y, and Z, and maybe that's why I'm like this. I'm like, sure. But you can also look from the standpoint of the mom also would come from work at 11 p.m., sit in the kitchen and go through homework with you. Your dad, which now we know, didn't have to be at work till 9 a.m., but he would wake up at 5 to take you to school and cook you breakfast.
Right.
So we always are so attached to the negatives. Let
Blaming,
me pick the negatives and say, that's why I'm like this.
Yeah.
Well, then why the fuck don't you focus on the guy waking up at 5 a.m. or your mom is staying up until 2 a.m. to teach you?
Yeah.
Take those points and allow it to shape yourself too.
It's easier.
It's easier.
It's easier. It's so much easier to blame everyone else and they did this and they did that.
Because to take it, made you a monster.
Absolutely, to make the decision to take action is really fucking hard, and that's
scary.
It's so scary, and that's one truth that I'll never lie about. Right, like continuing to be a better person is really hard. Yeah. It's easier to be a miserable person. It's easy to not check in with yourself. It's easy to not be aware of anyone else's feelings. It's so easy to be selfish, you know, but it's also not the right thing to do. I hate the quote, but it's so true. It's like struggle builds character. Yeah. It's so true. I think that anyone that's been through some shit has a story to tell. I think from a female's point of view, that it's not normal, right, to be, well, maybe now it is, but it never used to be normal to be strong and to have muscles. I always used to think, what's she been through? Yeah. You know, what's she been through? And that was something that now I hold pride in that. It's like every strong woman has a story. Yeah. And thank God they're on this side. Yeah. So we touched on business, we touched on relationships, but I want to, personal, I want to talk about business. Yeah, yeah. So all of these incredible, by the way, we've been going for like 2 hours. It's great. Really? I hope you guys haven't got anywhere to go. Yeah, I love it.
Hour and a half, I think.
But how did you get into this world? We met you through Rob and Dana Bailey. Yeah. I know that you've been training Rob for a while. You did a lot of training. I think you're still training with Dana too. Yeah. Like, how did you make fitness your career?
So I've always been into fitness, and I first came into it when I was right around the time I started skateboarding. So like 13-ish, 14-ish, somewhere in there. But I found the weight room. And remember, I told you I was like a really skinny, undersized kid, and grew up really lacking confidence. And when I found the weight room, I realized that like I can be strong, I can be fast, I can be confident. So the weight room initially gave me confidence. And as I started getting into like my 17, 18, 19 years, fitness kind of took over for me. You know, it was always like that foundational piece. I was always, if I had nothing else going, I was working out. If I was in between jobs, I was in the gym. So it was always like that, like foundational thing. And I remember when I was already in Montana. I had moved to Montana, and I went into a gym when I was 19. And I asked the person at the desk, I was like, hey, can I get a job here as a trainer, as a personal trainer? And they're like, okay, sure. Who are you certified with? And I'm like, certified? What do you mean certified?
What?
Like,
you can't just do it?
Yeah. Well, they were like, yeah, you have to have a certification. So I'm like, okay, thanks. So I go back to early days of the internet. This is 2005, somewhere in there. Yeah, 2005. And I find a place called the National Personal Training Institute. And it's a place in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's a 6-month program. You go there, you go to school, you leave with a personal training certificate. Cool. I moved to Colorado 2 weeks later.
Awesome.
So
I love
out
that.
the door. So I'm in Colorado now, and it takes me 9 months to finish the 6-month program, but I got it done.
But you got it done. I like that.
I also had to like fund my whole way down there. So I had 3 different jobs while I was trying to go to school. So it took a little bit longer for me to finish it than I would have liked. But immediately came back to Montana and started my personal training career in March of 2006. Yeah, March 2006. And I started there. And I worked at a small gym. I tried to get that going for a few years. And then what ended up happening 2 years later was the recession of 2008.
Yep.
Everything tanked, at least for me. My business went under, and so I reverted back to what I know that I could do, which was construction. And I worked from construction from 2008 to 2013. When everything happened with Coach C, I came out the other end of that January of 2014, and I went all in on personal training again. I got over my bullshit. I got over my excuses. I had that gnarly call to action to regain control of my life and myself. And so from 2014 in January to right now, I've been going all in on this.
I love it.
And so I've been training, I've been coaching. I started working in a gym, like, weird, crazy hours all day long. Nobody knew who I was. So I would sit at the front desk of a local gym just so that people could start seeing my face while I was working on my laptop. And what grew to like no clients and nobody knowing who I am to kind of like what I'm doing now, which is primarily online coaching, a little bit of in-person with, Rob and Dina and a couple other people that come to town. Mm-hmm. It has been such an incredible ride since. And it's so different, the training and the business side of it now than when I first started too. I bet. Primarily, I've recently just got on Instagram, like just a couple of years ago. I haven't been doing Instagram for a long time, but I was doing Facebook before, and coaching through Facebook is so much different.
Yeah.
So learning the ropes of Instagram and being out there and doing it that way has been such a cool experience. Yeah. It's so different. It's so fun. And it's just been like this ever evolving thing.
And you're able to connect with people like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy what I used to. There's like have a bittersweet relationship with social media.
Sure.
I'm like sure. A lot of people would not find this easy to believe, but like I'm a total introvert until a conversation with fitness is going to come up or something weird and outdoorsy.
Right.
But like in new big groups of people, if I'm not working, I have to like give myself a pep talk to like be on, because all I want to do is just like sit and watch.
Yeah. Yep.
But it is a pretty interesting thing to see online how many people you can reach through one device, which is so crazy. And the power of influence is scary.
Yeah.
It really is. But it can also do really good things if it's put in the right hands. Well,
and I bet too for you, like when we were at Glacier Park yesterday and you had those people come up to you and say like, oh, I follow you, I do your workouts. Like that, doesn't that feel so good to know that you're touching people that you have no
it really
idea.
does.
Absolutely.
It's wild. And it's actually like overwhelming for me sometimes because I'm such an emotional person. Like, when we do the expos and stuff, and people are standing in line and they've driven 4 hours, and you get there and they just can't even control themselves. They're crying. It's like, holy shit, man. I had no idea how much power of influence this has put on this person. Almost like a responsibility, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Which does come at a bit of a weird place sometimes. If I'm not in the right state of mind, my biggest fear is being an imposter and like not being able to practice what I preach. And those are the times that I usually go away until I can find myself in a good state of mind again. But it is an amazing thing. It really is. And what it's done for our life is insane. Just to think, you know, the opportunity is in your palm. You just have to take it. But we talk about business. Tell me about where and what and how anyone can find you.
So I'm mostly active on Instagram now, at Rasta Runner. There's a little underscore at the end, but I'm sure you could just find it by typing in Rasta Runner.
We'll plug everything in the show notes too.
Yeah. So I also do a podcast. It's called High Performance Health, and I talk everything about like life and my stories and the random stuff I've been involved in, to health and mindset and all of that different stuff. So High Performance Health is the podcast. But yeah, I'm on Instagram. Send me a message. You know, I respond to everything. Sometimes I get caught up with like the message requests, but every so often I try to get through all of those. But send me a message, you know, and if something landed with you on our conversation today, I'd love to hear it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and that was a really cool conversation, man.
I love it.
I kind of forgot that we were filming for a second. I'm like, shit, we've been going for 2 hours. Whoops. Are we okay?
I like podcasts because I feel like you're able to basically compress.
Yeah.
We would have had to meet at least 5, 6, 7 times. To get as much.
That's true. It would be maybe
close.
Weird.
Like I feel like we got really close to people because it's a big like.
Let's condense it.
It's a bomb of relationship that we explode in like an hour and a half instead of, oh man, I kind of know him, but not really. We're still, you know, getting to know each other. This is awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Thanks for making the time, man.
Absolutely. And if I could just acknowledge you two for a second, it's been a really cool experience getting to know you in such a short amount of time. And I think that I told you or Paulo, but I just feel like we're kindred spirits in a lot of ways, just a lot of similarities. And I know that you have had an impact on a lot of people's lives. And one life that I didn't mention until now was my daughter. Showing your photos to my daughter the other night, who struggles with being a muscular girl, seeing photos of you has kind of like eased her mind a little bit that it's okay to have muscle. It's okay to be strong and feminine at the same time. So thank you for being able to channel some of that into her, because I think that it made a difference showing her your pictures yesterday.
That's amazing. I hope I get to meet her before we leave.
She's awesome. You love her.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you. That's so big.
We have time for that.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Dan.
You bet.
All right, guys. Tune in. Listen up. See you next time. Wow, that was a cool conversation.
That was awesome, dude.